Yes, I did actually watch Advent Children last night because
Man.
I had to go back and compare Advent Children complete to that trailer, and I don't know, it's like they're almost like right dead on. And like I feel like Cloud in Advent Children had a little less detail
Mm.
than in that trailer.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Evan Children was like what 5 years ago?
Yeah, it was years ago.
Yeah,
Like years, like
5 years,
must be like 5 almost I want to say 8 almost.
8 years.
Cuz that was in I bought Advent Children complete in on Blu-ray in like 2008 or 9.
Yeah, I pirated it in 2008.
Woo!
Yeah.
Uh,
Even
but it had to be done cuz
yeah, it had to be done. Yeah,
cuz the
but
remake is real
I know, and that's the news. That's the news that has not been mentioned.
somehow.
It's like somehow everybody who left that press conference,
Like they all signed an NDA. It's like, all right, but we can't actually talk about it.
yeah, and the enthusiasm left with them, and that's it.
Yeah.
It's like why aren't more people speculating and talking about Final Fantasy VII remake? And it's going to be first for the PlayStation 4, which
And
means
that's
that
probably why.
yeah, that's probably why. Which which means that people who um, have an Xbox One are kind of upset, to say the
Yeah,
least.
because even that guy on the stream was saying that because he was like, well, even though it's first on PS4, that means eventually we're gonna get Final Fantasy 7 on Xbox. Like, oh, like that's great. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
yeah, okay, it's great, but we're getting it first, and
I
it's
know.
coming out is the main point. The main point is that it exists.
I know that it exists. I mean, whatever edition they get, it's probably going to be what, like the Ultima Edition 2 or something like that. I don't know. Super.
It'll just be like a 1 year exclusivity or something
Yeah.
like that.
It'll come on like
Like most things.
40 discs. You
It'll be download only because
download
like
them. It'll be like 10 gigabytes. But but yeah, but it's like
on a 10.
yeah,
I mean, let's put it this way. I mean, I don't know the fidelity of the full game,
yeah,
but like most games around now are between 30 and
yeah, yeah, yeah.
45 gigs. So,
No,
and this is a big open world,
I'm
so
talking.
you can imagine it's gonna be high up.
But I'm talking about how how you can see the you can see just the butt hurtness, and you can see it.
Yeah, you can.
You can see if you are a like mind like us and you're listening to this podcast on YouTube and you've gone to other blogs and gone to other media outlets and gone to other sources and heard what they had to say, the first things they talk about are Microsoft, Oculus Rift, or whatever it's called now.
Fallout 4.
Fallout 4 is the, and then you'll see like a speckle of, oh yeah, and by the way, Last Guardian's coming out.
Exactly.
Whatever.
I mean, I don't understand. And my again, I have to go back to this is my philosophy of what's wrong with gaming right now. Well, one of the things that's wrong with gaming right now. We're just in a world full of noobs right now.
Yeah.
We're in a world of people who first game console might have been the 360,
Yeah. Exactly.
but I think the majority of them haven't been into games for the past 2 years,
Yeah.
for any longer than that. I
That's
think that some of them came in with games with like The Last of Us or Gears of War,
hmm
Judgment,
yeah.
and that's what and gaming is what they know from those games forward. There are people who don't know the original Mass Effect.
Yeah.
They haven't played it. They didn't know it was exclusive to Microsoft at first. They haven't played the original. They haven't even played the original Drake's Fortune. They haven't played Uncharted 2.
Nope.
They don't know about MGS4. They don't know any of the story of Metal Gear. They don't know anything about PS2.
Yep.
I mean, and because of that, like somehow nothing matters to them.
Yeah. It doesn't. Yeah.
They don't know. They do not understand the gravity. You don't know the power of Final Fantasy VII Remake.
It's like Grandpa Vader. But yeah.
Grandpa Vader, because he's dead. Have you seen the Force Awakens trailer? The Joker got crisp. But they don't. That's why it's like And there was on a gaming website on pushsquare.com.
Yep.
The author had to like in a comment on his own article had to say to some people, it's like you don't understand the weight, the gravity that surrounds an announcement like Final Fantasy VII Remake or Shenmue 3.
Yeah, yeah. They don't.
They don't know it. It's just a name to them. They don't understand any of it. So it's like, okay, so whatever.
Yeah, you know
All
what?
the stuff is lost on them, and somehow the older gamer's voice has gotten drowned out by these new people who. Because here's the thing, on that same website, someone was complaining about it was an article about how buggy Ultra Street Fighter 4 is on PS4,
Right, right.
and some kid, and I know he's a kid because his profile says that he's like 15.
Yeah.
Because I went and read it,
Or was
and it's
that
like,
perverted justice?
I can't remember what his name was, but he was
Perverted-
like.
Perverted
No, it wasn't
justice
him.
from To Catch a Predator.
Yeah,
They're
it might have
trying
been.
they're trying to catch someone.
Maybe. But like he comments is like, "Oh, I can't believe that Sony put out such a bad game."
Yeah.
So I comment it's like Sony didn't develop Ultra Street Fighter 4. Capcom didn't even develop Ultra Street Fighter 4. It's a port of Street Fighter 4 that was done by a port house called the Ocean something like that.
Right.
And they're not owned by either Capcom or Sony.
Well, they're gonna be at the bottom of the ocean after that.
Maybe. But the point is that
Yeah.
these kids, and I have to call them kids because they are kids, they don't even realize that, just because a game is on a console, that console maker didn't develop it.
Yeah.
They don't even realize, they don't understand the concept that an original game is made by its original developers, and then most of the times, if it's ported to a different console, it's done by a port house, quote unquote, or it's just a different developer who specializes in porting
Yeah.
games. They don't even understand the concept
No.
because they're just too young in the video game industry.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Just it happened to me. I mean, with PS1, I remember, I used to think that games like Final Fantasy VII and Resident Evil were developed by Sony. So
Yeah, which
up
well,
to the point.
you could be forgiven
Yeah.
because one, you're a kid, and two, in America they were published
Yeah.
by Sony Computer Entertainment America.
Yeah.
So the Sony logo comes up there. So nowadays, kids be into that
that
hacker race. But nowadays, if you see a Sony logo on a game and it's published by Sony, it's usually one of their internal studios.
Right. 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 Well,
But in Japan, Capcom published Biohazard, and Square published Final Fantasy VII. But in America, that it just so happened at that time that Sony published them.
Right. Right. Yeah. And that was just an example because by that time, I was fully aware of like companies like Capcom and Namco. But even I'm just thinking back now, where that really did happen to me was during the NES and Super Nintendo time, and yeah, that's when I was very, very young, and I didn't know that somebody who released something on Nintendo, it wasn't Nintendo who released the game, it was a company. And sometimes I would see a Nintendo game get ported to the Genesis or something, and I'd be like, well, how did Nintendo make that deal with Genesis? I didn't know.
Yeah.
But that's a good point that you bring out, that's this new generation, these new kids that are coming up, it's none of their fault, and it's just a part of like learning how things work in this world. But their voice, unfortunately, because of social media, that's a hard word to get around when you have 10 ounces of vodka in you.
Whoa.
When social media, because of social media, their voices are being heard, and their text is being broadcast all over the place, and they are many more than the classic game, than the core gamer.
Yeah. It's unfortunate, but it's true.
Unfortunately, they know it all because they go on Wiki and they can find whatever they want. So, you could be talking about, let's just say you could talk about Bump and Jump for the NES. All you got to do is go to Wiki and find out. Okay, Bump and Jump. Let's see what it is. Read a little bit and then post a comment as if you know.
Exactly.
That's it.
But they don't know because they've never played any of it. They were not around when any of this stuff happened.
Right.
And this is the thing. It's like, so when we get into these debates almost online,
Yeah.
they don't have good points or good arguments because they weren't around when we start to talk about the old days. When we start to talk about the console wars between Sony and Microsoft with 360 and PS3, they weren't around to know what Sony said. They weren't around to know what Microsoft said and did.
Yeah.
So when we start to talk about that, and we're talking about it from experience and from memory, they think we're just making it up because they think we're another 15-year-old like them who wasn't paying attention to games 5 years ago. When we start to talk about Sega Genesis versus Super Nintendo, they just tune out because they don't know nothing about that.
Yeah, they know. But now this is.
But back to the press conference.
I know.
before we-
For real, but before
Great.
let's get this out of the way before that. Let's get a rant out of the way.
Let's get it.
Let's just get it. Let's get it on. Someone's gonna get got. Yeah, someone's gonna get got, and I think Colin Moriarty, Greg Miller, you guys know better.
They should anyway.
You should know better. You broke out of IGN. We thought you broke out of ignorance, but you go ahead. You make your own little studio. Or you make your own little website, media outlet, whatever for games. Kind of funny games. I'm gonna call it out. And you guys know better. They know games. They know about the past. They know about everything. I am just right now
Disappointed
very
that
disappointed.
they were, because if you happen to have paid attention to their
Yeah.
Twitch stream, especially after Sony's press conference,
Yeah.
they were just ragging on Sony for no real reason,
Yeah.
but yet if you saw how they praised Microsoft for doing crap
Oh yeah.
in some instances,
Exactly.
it's like Sony didn't need a gimmick of having a Ford GT drop from the ceiling
Yeah.
to excite people.
No.
You know, they didn't have to have Henry Ford come on stage and pretend like he gives a crap about Forza, because we all know he doesn't.
He doesn't. He
Henry
cares
Ford
about.
III doesn't play games.
Yeah.
He
Exactly.
doesn't. He probably didn't even know Forza existed before Microsoft approached him to put the Ford GT into the new game. But Sony didn't need that. They showed The Last Guardian, they showed Final Fantasy VII Remake, and they showed Shenmue 3.
Yeah.
I mean, and we're not even talking about
About the other.
Horizon.
Yeah.
We're not talking about Dreams. We're not talking about all the other games, the exclusive content from Arkham Knight. We're not talking about Battlefront.
Yeah. And
Those
how about
things-
for what was that other game for Honor or for Glory?
Well, that's not. That's multi-platform though. That's Ubisoft. For Honor, yeah.
For Honor. All right. Right. That's right. Because that's the only thing that stood out of the Ubisoft.
It was
Press-
really. It was though.
It was the only.
Because the Ubisoft press conference was just military shooter after military shooter that almost kind of looked the same.
It looked like Microsoft's press conference.
Yeah, which was surprising.
Military shooter.
Military shooter, Gears of War,
Gears of War.
and then their sorry attempt at trying to copy No Man's Sky called Ion.
Yeah, Ion. Right.
I mean, like, seriously, I'm surprised no one else caught on to that.
No, they
But
did.
Ion
They
is
did.
trying to be like No Man's Sky, except it's just like it's more realistic, whereas No Man's Sky kind of like cartoony thing, but it's not No Man's Sky, and it's not going to be anywhere near as good.
Yeah. They always have to have. They have to have like a little. Jet
Yeah, because
insert.
No Man's Sky ain't coming out on Xbox.
I know.
But I would love to see how they would run that on Xbox, but anyway, that's another story.
But you see how
The point is that Colin Moriarty and these jokers,
they're just stupid. Look, okay, so they had this guy right after the press conference. There was three of them. It was Tim, I forgot his last name, Colin Moriarty in the middle, and then Greg Miller right next to Colin, and they were probably holding hands under the table. Again. Tim was really excited for Final Fantasy VII, like everybody
he
should. Like every gamer should. Every gamer should be like we were. Like everybody who was sitting in those seats at the Sony press conference and everybody who was watching at home got excited. This kid, Tim, he looks like a young guy. He's
yeah. The beard makes him look older. He's probably like 24.
he's
26.
he's like 24, maybe 24. I'd say 24 to 27, right? Let's just say that. Colin Moriarty's right next to him. Colin Moriarty is buried in his laptop with the look said it all. I mean, his face looks so just like he was just so
Pissed.
angry.
It's like, Yeah, he's like disgusted
He
almost.
was almost like he was gonna vomit. And then Greg Miller was just staring at Tim as he's talking and kind of like spacing out. Tim's like, man, I can't wait for Final Fantasy VII, and he's like, this is the best announcement ever. Blah 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 blah. The best. This is gonna be like one of the best remakes ever. And he's talking about what do you think's gonna come out for the future of this game? Like what more announcements? What? Absolutely no
Right. No
feedback.
feedback from the other two.
Yeah, they didn't want to even touch the subject.
Right. The
It's
only thing that Colin says, like he goes off into his own world and then starts to
yeah,
research a rumor
a
about who's developing it.
right.
He's like, oh yeah, so he's reading in the chat. He's like, oh, someone in the chat says
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that Destructoid says
Yeah, yeah. Destructoids.
that this other company might be the ones who are developing it, and I'm gonna go look them up because I've never heard of them.
Right. I've never,
It's like
so he does.
it's like what?
While they're talking about it, he's on his laptop and he looks up the company, and then essentially just goes on a hate spree about how we don't know. He's kind of scared about that company. We don't know them. We don't know what's gonna
Yeah.
happen.
Well, guess what? We didn't know Rocksteady
Yeah,
before Arkham
exactly.
Asylum,
Exactly.
and we know him now.
Right.
But
Right.
it's like, but who bloody cares?
Who bloody
That's
cares
not the
about that?
point.
Yeah.
The point is this game that we have been asking for since they showed us that Final Fantasy VII demo on PS3
Right.
tech demo in 2006 or 2005, literally 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It's finally being made, and that has been like probably the most number one requested thing to Square.
It is the number.
It's finally
it is
happening,
probably the
and
biggest.
they're like
It's on
indifferent.
Yeah, it's like it's on every single gamer's wish list on the number one spot of it. Like, it's the game that's everyone's been asking for since PS2.
Pretty much, yeah. We've always wanted to replay Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, and when they remade, when they went ahead and remade Resident Evil,
Yeah.
people started talking, like for the GameCube when they did Rebirth, people started talking about Final Fantasy VII, like they should just remake Final Fantasy VII. And I remember there was an article in a magazine that I used to get, and it was a whole article about how a remake of Final Fantasy VII would work on PS2 at this point. It would work. I mean, be it that's what it was back then, and that's what they thought back then. Maybe it would have, maybe it wouldn't have. But the Final Fantasy X did really good, you know. So
Yeah.
you know, something, a Final Fantasy game looking like that, a 7 looking like 10 would have been what,
Been amazing.
you know, it would have been good back then. But now, when you got the capability to do everything rendered, and when you have enough RAM to just push the game to the limit
Yeah.
of what visually of what you can
Particle
achieve.
effects.
Yeah.
Imagine what Knights of the Round will look like.
Oh my god. No, I can't even. Imagine Odin. Oh my god, imagine if you summon Odin and lightning is riding Odin.
That would be so
That
crazy.
would be freaking crazy. They need DLC summons. That's what they need.
Yeah.
That
that's
will
true.
push it to the edge. Materia DLC. Like, you can buy Materia.
Yeah, you can buy like materia DLC that you can buy that's of other Final Fantasy characters. So it's like
Right.
it's like, you know, somebody's like crystal power from 13 or
Exactly.
someone's staff from A Realm Reborn. It'll be awesome.
Yeah, that would be freaking crazy.
What's our time like?
We're at 18 minutes talking. But
Oh, that's
now,
nice.
but now you see, like, going back to the negative side, which is being brought out by these punks, like these cowards like Greg Miller and Colin Moriarty. They shot that guy down, completely shot him down, and then when he was
Then he starts to talk about Uncharted.
right, he wants to pick up another topic because he thinks that maybe, you know, he's gonna get a little in with Greg because he knows Greg loves Uncharted. That's no secret. And he starts talking about, he's like, but what about Uncharted 4? And he's like, Uncharted 4 looks amazing and this and that. Colin Moriarty, his head begins to like slump down, and his head, like, you see like the top of his laptop, and his eyes are like slowly going under, like the sun setting. And he he just keeps to himself through the whole conversation, and then he just says, it just comes out of nowhere. He says, I don't want to talk about that game.
Yeah. And then he gives the excuse, well, I know it's going to be great, so I just don't want to hear any more about it.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
Yeah. So.
But, sir, your entire job is
Yeah.
to talk about video games.
Exactly.
On top of that, you have just witnessed in person a video game conference that like 1/10 of the people who are watching actually got to go to. So
Exactly.
yeah, you're here. Your purpose of you being there on the internet is to talk about games
Exactly.
and talk about the games they show. So don't tell me that you don't want to talk about a game.
Yeah. So what's the problem?
If you don't want to talk about a game, go home.
Exactly. If you don't want to talk
Let someone else who
Exactly.
will enjoy it be up there and talk about the game.
I applaud your comment, sir. That's what needs to be done, man. People need to put their pants on. People need to put their man pants on in the media and say, you don't want to talk about a game, then go home. We don't want to hear anything else you have on any other game. You got to talk about everything.
And this is like the problem with video game journalism.
Exactly.
Because you never hear anyone on CNN be like, I don't want to talk about the Iraqi war anymore.
Right. Well, unless it's like okay, yeah, I don't want to talk about like what, Benghazi anymore, because
But it's like
they're from the left
hear
or the
that.
right. Yeah,
number one, two reasons why you never hear that. Number one, okay, three reasons why you never hear that. Number one, because they're professional.
Right.
Number two, because what they're presenting to you is usually more or less factual news and not their opinion about something. And number three, because they work for real journalists in the real journalism world. So as much as Greg Miller and all these people want to pretend that they're writers and they went to writing school in college and majored in writing, blah, 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 please. You are doing nothing more than being a loud voice in a microphone, giving your personal opinion.
Yeah, well,
you are no Wolf Blitzer, because you never hear Wolf Blitzer be like, well, Matt, on his show, the whole show is like, well, the crisis in the Middle East. Well, I don't want to talk about that anymore.
Yeah,
it doesn't happen. But guess what? Like, that happens in games because we're a bunch of babies talking about what we like and don't like. And if I don't like it, then I shouldn't have to talk about it, even though it's my job to talk about it.
I know. That's the thing. Well, games, that's what you get. You get babies playing games. And, that's the image that we all project all the time. And people are trying to get away from that image. But you have people like Greg Miller, Colin Moriarty, Rich of Review Tech USA. You have people like the trolls that follow Rich of Review Tech USA. You have like the panel, Jeff Keighley's panel after E3 for the Sony press conference was the lowest bunch of idiots I've ever seen on the face of the earth.
And what's unfortunate about that is that most of them are like editors in chief of some gaming site.
Well, now we know where. Where the coffee's getting filtered. It's like
exactly.
So that's the whole thing. Let's jump to Jeff Keighley now. Jeff Keighley's question for the panel. There was 5 of them, and he aimed his question first at the woman on the panel. There's a redhead.
Yeah. Felicia Day.
Felicia Day. Yeah, I know. I think I recognize her from something else, but she's like right.
She's in a bunch of stuff. Voice acting, blah blah blah.
Yeah, right. He asks her like, "How do you rate Sony's press conference?" First thing out of her mouth is, "Well, I really like Xbox. I'm like a Microsoft gamer, but I don't know." And she was just confused. And she's like, "But actually, there's a really good tablet game that I saw down there that I liked, and that's not
the Fallout game."
Yeah, that's not the question. And then she's like, "Well, they're kind of both even." No, they're not. Apparently, she's wrong. And then as soon as the panel finished, they all gave Sony a really purposely low review, even though it's still trying to be high, because they know that they did win E3, and they know that they did do it.
There was only one guy who was like, I give him an A because and rightfully so, but the rest of them like, oh well, B. 3 of them give a B, and then Felicia Day is like, well, it was as good as the Bethesda one, but she wouldn't give it a grade.
Right.
It's like I just want to reiterate, they announced The Last Guardian
The Last Guardian,
the Final Fantasy 15, Final Fantasy 7 remake,
a new
and Shenmue 3.
Shenmue 3, the three games that have been on people's minds for years are finally coming out. And then, not to mention, World of Final Fantasies, a new
Yeah.
Final Fantasy game.
Yeah, if that was on 3DS instead,
Oh.
they'd be blowing up the internet.
Up everywhere. Oh yeah, the internet would have been blown.
It'd be like, oh, another cute, charming Final Fantasy game on Nintendo platforms. This is what Nintendo does best. They get these characters and blah 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 blah.
Well, since it's
But
exclusive
it's
to
on,
Sony.
but it's on PS4 and Vita, and we're not even gonna talk about it because
Yeah, because of Microsoft, because Nintendo. But yeah, so they got all these games, and those fools could not.
They just couldn't. They begrudgingly put the B only because they knew they had to. It's like you can't go any lower than B because number one, it was the best conference.
It was the best
of all of them.
Yeah.
Number three, they had the best announcements of everybody.
Yeah.
And I mean, they gave you, and this is what Jeff Keighley said. He's like, the only thing they didn't do was announce Half-Life 3, and then the other guy, yeah, he's like, I guess Sony will cure cancer next year because like they're doing everything else.
Jeff Keighley knows what's going on, and that's why he asks the questions he asks.
He does.
And if you look at his Twitter account, he's very balanced, and he likes, he loves Fallout. He loved Fallout in the Microsoft press conference. He loved Fallout. He tweeted it out. He's like, man, Fallout is coming, man. That's awesome. Was it Fallout 4 or something like that, right? So he loved that game. But then when Sony came up, he also gave them as much attention as he did Microsoft.
Exactly.
Because that's supposed
to be he's the closest thing to an actual video game professional in the video game thing than that's ever been there. Like all these other people are just little college kids or YouTubers.
Yeah, people
social media people who just come off and now they've been stuck in front of a camera because of video games.
Yeah.
But they're not professionals.
Yeah, they're
not. And what we have to realize is that it's just their opinion, and their opinion does not matter any more than yours or mine.
Exactly.
They're just a person who happens to be in front of a camera with a mic right now. If they put you and me out front and center, it would be no different.
No different at all. Yeah, no different at all. But the dark side of that is that there are people behind that camera who are protecting those figures.
It's companies.
Yeah, they're protecting them from getting flagged. They're protecting them from a number of trolls and things, because like you and me will post this video up and we can get flagged.
Yeah, it might not even get for the YouTube will flag us for some crap. So they'll find something.
Yeah, these guys, there's a sinister dark side to that. We'll save that for another podcast, but yeah, man, it's like, oh my god, I can't believe it. And then after that, remember when Jeff Keighley's, and going back to Jeff Keighley's panel afterwards, when they all finished giving those bad reviews, that lady, I forgot her name.
Felicia Day?
No, on the Twitter.
Oh, no. Jax. She's a new person. I don't know who she is, but
yeah, when the camera went to her to see the Twitter poll, she said, remember how she said it? She was like, you guys give Sony a.
Yes.
It's like you guys give Sony a B. Sony just blew up the internet.
Yeah, it's like the internet does not agree with you.
Yeah.
Because
exactly.
But that's the other thing. It's like they're all these people who sit up there like they're the gods of gaming, and their word is law. It's like, no, it's not.
Exactly. They gave
number one, you have agendas, and number two, your opinion ain't that great.
Yeah, it ain't that great. It's like, it's like Adam Sessler all over again, and Morgan Webb and Olivia Munn. It's Olivia Munn or whatever her name is.
Yeah, she ain't no none.
She ain't no none for real. She's she freaking took the Vatican all the way.
Dang.
So it's like
sweating like a hooker in church.
For real. But yeah, man, that was just the most like.
Yeah, it was terrible. Sony won the world, and then 5 minutes later, everyone was trying to put them down, except for like the few real fans who were truly excited, like they should be.
Yeah.
And then like everyone just stifled them down, and then by the next day, the internet's like whatever.
Yeah, whatever. It doesn't matter. Let's talk about Fallout. No, there's comments saying that like, oh, Fallout 4 won E3. It's like,
no, it didn't. It's like Shenmue 3 won E3.
Exactly.
How can you not? I'm like, but again, because they don't know.
They don't know it.
They just don't know.
And I think you're right. It's like, and Colin is probably no Well, he's probably no older than 30. Um,
Yeah, they're around there.
Greg, same. I mean, they know better.